The 2018 college basketball season is here, and we're going to preview all the top conferences and the key teams, including top sleepers and more, as Prime Sports College Hoops on Prime Sports Network starts now. All right, it's Wednesday, November 8th, 2017. I'm your host, Greg DePalma, and we're going to be here over the next several weeks previewing two conferences each on every show as we get you ready for the college basketball season, which starts on Friday. So let me introduce my co-hosts to the show. They will be my college hoops analysts for the season. They were with us last season. First, we'll start with Mr. Blackatologist himself, Jamal Murphy, who is a co-host of the Bill Roden on Sports podcast on iTunes. How you doing, Jamal?
I'm good. Can't wait for college basketball season Friday, baby.
Yep, college basketball season is almost here. Also joining us is Mr. Scotty Z, and Scotty is a professional sports producer and a, Maryland fan? Is that what?
Come on, Yeah. First of all, where's the Scotty stuff coming from? What is it? We start college basketball season, we end baseball season, and all of a sudden Scotty comes out?
Yeah, I'm not going to call you Scotty on a baseball. You're Scott for baseball.
Well, doesn't Scotty sound more like a baseball thing than a college basketball thing?
No.
Anyway, and you said professional sports producer. I do collegiate sports, my friend. Collegiate.
So you're a minor league producer?
Amateur. We go by amateur.
You're an amateur producer. Well, that's pretty. You really want to be called an amateur producer?
We don't get paid.
You don't get paid at all? You do it for free? It's an internship.
It's college. No, I get a scholarship.
You get a scholarship. Okay, that's worse. All right, so let's talk AAC hoops, and we're also going to talk A-10 hoops on this show. So AAC and A-10, and the AAC, of course, the American Athletic, and boy, Jamal, this is for real. Now, this conference, which has been pretty tough over the last several years, is really amping things up at Wichita State now. And boy, did they get Wichita State at the right time. So now, between Wichita State and Cincinnati, I mean, you have two legitimate Final Four contenders.
Yeah, and two bruisers. Can you imagine those games? Defensive battles, tough matchups. I guess 2 times a year, I'm assuming, in this conference. So yeah, it adds a little juice to the conference. I like Wichita State in somewhat of a real conference now. No shots, no shade there.
Yeah.
But, so it'll be interesting. It adds something for sure to the AAC.
Yeah, Wichita State is picked a little bit higher to win the national championship. Wichita State's the favorite of this conference at 16-1. Cincinnati's next at 40-1. I'm surprised there's such a big drop-off, Scott. I don't think Cincinnati – look, I agree Wichita State's the better team, but I don't think Cincinnati's that far off of Wichita State.
No, Cincinnati's not even close to that far. They're a really, really good basketball team, and like Jamal said, these are going to be just absolutely exciting games. This isn't the old Wichita State with Ron Baker and Van Vliet, where it was a very finesse shooting team. This is the McDuffie. This is the even Shamet and of course Shaq Morris. These are the big boys of Wichita State, and you know what? It's truly a shame that Wichita State finally got a conference change and they didn't go to the Big 12. Where they would have been playing most of their games, somewhere around their campus, within, several hundred miles, instead of having to travel 1,000 miles to play the Yukon and the South Floridas and stuff like that. But look, they're finally in a conference where they could be taken more seriously. Unfortunately for the Missouri Valley, that just leaves just basically northern Iowa to bruise their way through, and that kind of really hurts the RPI of that conference. And the overall outlook of that conference, Northern Iowa will probably be the next to leave.
Yep.
And but I'm really excited to see again Connor Frankamp, the guy who's been playing much better every year of his career. Wichita State, they're a really good basketball team, returning all 5 starters, and them in Cincinnati, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then what you like about Wichita State too is the fact that everybody of importance is back from a 31-win team. That very nearly beat Kentucky and moved on, and so this is a legit team, and they've got a legit coach. So and they probably will be even better prepared come tournament time because of the better matchups during the tournament. What can Cincinnati do, Jamal, to get over the hump? Because Mick Cronin is a solid coach. He's been doing this for a while now at Cincinnati, and ever since he's there, because he was the one that took over for Huggins, right? It went from Huggins to Cronin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe, yeah, and so he's been there a while, and he's always coached well, but he can't get this team to go far in the tournament.
Well, I mean, they've made some runs. I think they've gotten to the Sweet 16. I'm not sure about that, but always at least to the second round. They're always in the mix, even when you don't think, even when they're not, highly rated preseason. Cronin has a way of at least getting them to the tournament, so it's hard to, downplay what he's done. Cincinnati's going to be right there. Like I said, they're always pretty much underrated. And you just mentioned the fact that they're probably not that far off of Wichita State. So they're going to be right there. They have a player who many consider as the preseason player of the year in the conference, and Gary Clark, a senior. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. But they're going to be right there, and they'll challenge for at least, I think, a Sweet 16 spot, or maybe more.
Oh, yeah, I'd be shocked, no pun intended, if both of these teams didn't make it at least to the Sweet 16. The other thing, too, Scott, about this is that when you do have these players like Cincinnati, like Clark's is a senior, Kyle Washington's a senior, and also Jacob Evans is a junior. And for Wichita State, they've got a couple of seniors in Shaquille Morris and Frank Camp, who you mentioned. McDuffie's the junior. And we mentioned this because on a lot of the bigger schools and the bigger teams, you get to be a junior or a senior, you're already gone. So you're into the NBA, and that's puts these two programs here in a really good situation when they have to go up against those teams who will be very talented still, but a lot of those teams, of course, will still have younger kids. Most of those top programs they'll be facing in the tournament will probably be predominantly freshman and sophomore led.
Right. Well, this is one of my favorite things about college basketball. Think about let's look at Wichita State first. You mentioned those five guys, with the exception of Shamet, they're all juniors or seniors. These are Wichita State is an undersized team. Both their bigs are 6'8", listed at 6'8". That is, Marcus McDuffie probably more like 6'6", 6'7", and he's only a junior. For Shaq Morris, 6'8", senior, who plays center for this team, or the roving five, the stretch five. Sometimes he can still knock down jump shots. But the thing about Wichita State and their guys, hanging around is because when you play in a team like this, and these are players that are smart enough to realize when they're 6'8", their bigs are 6'8". Those are probably their two best players, McDuffie and Morris, in my opinion. Obviously, Shamet's the guy who is the one that everybody's really excited about. He had a great freshman year last year, but the two key players, not say best players, they're two key players that are big, and they both know that they're not going to go play in the pros. So why not give it their all in college, and they'll make themselves a nice career over in Europe, and who knows, maybe one of them, if they can work on a better jump shot, can become a Kevin Durant type player. Not obviously like Kevin Durant, but somebody who's tall enough that can be a forward, a good shooting forward.
And the big difference between these two teams were both very good defensive teams, which probably also is an edge for Wichita State. Wichita State's a very good three-point shooting team as well. That's what makes them dangerous, is the combination of being well coached, excellent defense, and they could shoot the three. I mean, you can't really ask for a better combination than that. Cincinnati is more of just that really powerful team that plays really good defense and is a really good rebounding team, as Wichita State is as well. Now, as far as the rest of the conference is concerned, you've got a couple. I would say the other two teams that I'm the most interested in that think that, okay, maybe they can make the tournament would be SMU. I understand that SMU lost some key guys, right? No question about that. But Jankovic knows how to coach, and he's got a lot of good talent returning. And maybe this is Central Florida's year. They're ready, you would think, with a lot of guys. They did lose one key guy, Matt Williams, last year, but of course they have Taco Fall. We know what a big deal he is on campus, and BJ Taylor. But Aubrey Dawkins is dealing with an injury situation, and that is the key for Central Florida. Jamal, is if they're going to be relevant, I think the addition of Aubrey Dawkins, if they make it again, I don't know anything else about his injury status other than right now he's a little bit banged up and may not be ready to play. But as long as he's ready to go for most of the season, that's a big addition for them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about his injury status either. You're right. It's a big year for them to try to move into relevance. But there are a lot of other teams, basically have the same objective. Like Houston, that's a team with Calvin Sampson, who many people thought they were pretty close to the tournament last year. They were on the outside looking in. This is the year that people are thinking that they might make the tournament. UConn obviously had a very poor year last year, a bunch of injuries. They're a team that many people are looking to return to some sort of prominence. I'm not sure at what level, but Temple's a good team that has a lot of basketball history that hasn't done well in the last few years, and they're another team in this league who people are looking to make some noise. So it's an interesting conference for sure.
Yeah, out of those teams, I actually Temple. I'm intrigued by Temple as a sleeper team, Scott. We know Dunphy knows how to coach, and he's got a couple of really good players there. He lost Dingle, but there's some really good talent there on that team. So I'm looking for them to possibly be a sleeper. I don't know about Houston because they lose Dotson, and that is, very rarely do you see a program like Houston lose an NBA caliber player, and then they get better. So they're going to need some other guys to step up to replace all that production. Of course, they have Gray, and he's a top player. He's still there. And Connecticut, I don't know what's going on with Kevin Ollie. It seems like he's not very respected, which is kind of strange.
I don't know if he's not very respected. It's more like, you know what? No, that's actually a pretty good way to put it. He just. I guess it's pretty hard for a guy who's especially replacing, Jim Calhoun. But don't get me wrong, Kevin Ollie's had his own success. There's no question about that.
That's what I'm surprised about. You win a national championship. Come on, what do you want the guy to do?
Yeah, and also just to circle back around, Aubrey Dawkins is out for the season.
Oh, is he?
With that shoulder injury. So the son of
that's a big
son
blow.
of Johnny. He's out for the year. It's really upsetting for UCF fans who were really looking forward to seeing what they had with Taylor Dawkins and Taco Fall. That would have been a really exciting, big, powerful three there. But the young guy, he'll be done for the year. But Temple, I'm not so sure about Temple. UConn is the one to me that really needs to get it going. They had so many bad injuries last year, like Jamal mentioned. Larrier, of course, Ciara, those two really hurt. But they got a lot of incoming freshmen. They have probably the best freshman of the year, Tariq Gilbert, the guard, who is supposed to be such an unbelievable slasher. I'm very excited to see what he can do against some good competition. But Jalen Adams, he's going to be the guy that's got to step up. He was, first team all conference last year. He was a monster for them, and one of the best point guards in the country, one of the most underrated point guards in the country. He could score, and even better, he could dish it out with the best of them. So UConn, to me, is the team that has the most to prove going into this season. Again, like you said, Kevin Ollie hasn't gotten the respect that he probably deserves, but he's also struggled. And when you struggle at a basketball school like UConn, that's like when Kentucky had Tubby Smith. It doesn't work out sometimes when you have good basketball coaches that just have a couple of down years, and it's unfortunate for them. But SMU, they should still be really, really good. Any team that has Shake Milton, who's the preseason conference player of the year, they're good, even though they lost Shemi Oshile, one of my favorite players in basketball.
Yeah, they lost key players, but they still have a decent group coming back after a 30-win season. There's no reason for me to believe that they won't make the tournament, barring injuries. But Connecticut also, it was the injuries, as Jamal said, and also I think what's upsetting people are all the transfers. See, that's the problem. Why are they transferring out so fast from UConn? That's what I'm saying. There's something going on there with Kevin Ollie that's not working out with these kids. But maybe these kids aren't any good. I'm not necessarily talent, but maybe they're not good teammates. I don't know. But when you come off a 16-win season and guys transfer, this is a big year for Kevin Ollie. So they has to make sure that they win, and that those guys that left, maybe that's actually better for the program. So I'm going to say that as far as the tournament teams, I think we both agree Cincinnati, Wichita State are at least Sweet 16 teams. And then I'm definitely gonna put SMU in the tournament. I'm gonna hold off now on Central Florida with Dawkins out for the year, and I'm putting Temple in. Temple's gonna be my top sleeper in this conference, with Wichita State definitely as a Final Four contender, and maybe even a national championship pick. And Cincinnati maybe going far this year, finally to an Elite Eight. I'll go with that. Everybody else on the bubble. What about you, Jamal?
I mean, I basically agree with you. It's like you said, I like Wichita State. I think they're the cream of the crop. Cincinnati right there, a little behind. I agree with you on the sleeper being Temple with Dunphy. He can coach. I think they've been, I just can't see Temple having another completely down year. I think they're going to at least battle for a tournament spot. And Connecticut is the real, the team to watch here. Either way. As you said before, Kevin Ollie, he's basically, struggled mightily in the regular season. So it'd be interesting to see if he can shake that and they can have a decent regular season. We know in tournament time he's a very good tournament coach, good motivator. But he has some talent at UConn. He should be able to keep them definitely near the top of this league, at least top 3, top 4. And get into the tournament. I think if they don't make the tournament this year, yes, he's had success. Kevin Ollie's had success, obviously, with a national championship. But if he doesn't get him to the tournament this year, he's in real trouble.
And Scott, the other teams, East Carolina, Jeff Lebo, a lot of people surprised that he was able to come back. So he's on his last legs. Tubby Smith is trying to build something in Memphis. So people are expecting some improvement there. Brian Gregory takes over the South Florida program. Mike Dunleavy is there for the second year, so they're expecting a big improvement at Tulane. And Frank Haith is at Tulsa, and after going to the tournament a couple of years ago, they slipped back after losing a lot of guys last year. So maybe they'll be back in contention after a 15-win season. So who do you like as far as the tournament and maybe a sleeper or two?
My sleeper is Memphis. You nailed it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Memphis coming in with 2 major JUCO transfers in Kareem Bruton and Kyvon Davenport. These guys are supposed to be really, really good. I've seen small highlights from here and there, but if I've only seen small highlights, that means most likely the teams that are going to be playing the first several weeks will also have only seen small highlights about them, so it'll be tough to scout them. 9 newcomers for freshmen, for Kentucky, Memphis. Wow, I said Tubby Smith with Kentucky, and I'm still stuck on that. This is a conference that needs to turn it around. Only 2 teams in the tournament last year, with Cincinnati and SMU. They want to get 4. They really want to get 4. I think Natty, Wichita State, SMU, and UConn should be able to get it. Memphis being my sleeper. UCF, somewhat of a sleeper, but I would think that they're still, unfortunately, going to be left going out because of the Dawkins injury. But Johnny Dawkins, this is going to be his second year, so, and he doubled their win total from a year ago. So I think that he's going to be a really, really he's going to have a good team. But will they make the tournament? That's a big question. But in terms of some of those other teams you mentioned, I'll be seeing Tulane next week in Jamaica, and I'll be able to give you more of a sense about them. Brian Gregory, I saw he had some really good players at Georgia Tech, but it's going to be really tough for him. He's got 9, 10, 11 freshmen coming into that season. So I think you got the big 4 and then everybody else from the outside looking in.
And by the way, don't you love it when you get 2 guys like the Lawson kids that transfer from Memphis to go to Kansas? Don't you love that? When the big schools, there should be like a rule against like the really good programs getting transfers. I know there can't be, but there should be. It's like you can't get enough recruits. That you got to take other schools' recruits and then they develop them and then they go to like Kansas and Duke and stuff. I mean, come on, that's pathetic.
I mean, that same thing happens in high school basketball all the time. How do you think that Oak Hill and La Lumiere and all these other big schools in high school basketball get all these guys because they see who's good as a sophomore and junior and take them for their senior year.
All right, let's talk A-10 basketball now. And boy, the A-10. I don't think the A-10 was. I mean, they had a couple good teams last year. Don't get me wrong, but there's some transition here. Of course, Dayton. That's probably the biggest story. The coaching change there with Archie Miller to Indiana and Anthony Grant coming in to replace Miller at Dayton, and that's going to be a big deal there. But this is all about Rhode Island. I mean, we talked about the tournament run that they made, and that kind of surprised me because they really came on a little bit late at the end of the season. They were a bubble team all the way through to their probably until they had to win a game or two in their conference tournament to solidify themselves in the big dance for sure. And then of course they went ahead and won the whole thing anyway. But then they had that run and they almost beat Oregon. And I look at this team, and okay, they lost a couple guys, and I understand Martin and Iverson, Hassan Martin, Karan Iverson, these are good players, I get that, but they've got a lot of good players coming back, and especially, of course, E.C. Matthews, and I just think this team is, after the run they made, I think this team is primed to be a major Sweet 16 sleeper, and maybe more. Jamal.
Yeah, no, I think, well, this is the year. They have to perform again this year. They have to get back to the NCAA tournament to validate the program, to validate Danny Hurley as a coach. They have their best player returning, like you said, E.C. Matthews, averaging about 15 a game last year. Big time college player. So you can expect a big year out of him. I agree with you that there's no question that they should be the cream of the crop in the A-10. I think the only team that can probably challenge them is VCU. But like I said, it's a big year for Danny Hurley to really validate the program.
Yeah, Scott, I look at this team and I say, again, they lost some key guys, but they did bring in a top recruit in Deron Russell. So to me, I think you can offset one of those two losses. Jeff Doutwin is also, after a big year last year, he's a sophomore. All the other guys that are still there, including Matthews, are older. All the other teams they played last year have guys that have left the programs. So, and Hurley knows how to coach defense, and that's exactly how this team won. So, this team, I don't even think it's the debate. This team's going to be better than they were last year.
I think they're going to be better than they were last year too. I mean, if I was another team's fan of the A-10, first of all, I'd be saying, is E.C. Matthews still possibly on this team? He's been there for so long. He's like I remember growing up when I was a Maryland fan back in the day, and it was Julius Hodge was the guy who was just there for 60 years in a row. E.C. Matthews, because he's been such a star since his freshman year. It seems like it's impossible, but he's still there. It's impressive. They still have Jarvis Garrett. He's still there, and Jared Terrell. He's still there. And just Russell's friends, they call him Fat. He's a short guy. He's listed at 5'10". He's gonna be really exciting. He's like another guy that used to be in the league, and Kendall Anthony from Richmond.
All right, let's talk about those two other powerhouse teams from this conference, VCU and Dayton. Jamal, as you mentioned, VCU, maybe you like them there, and so do I. I think VCU has definitely got what it takes to be the number 2 team in this conference. Mike Rhodes takes over the program, so we'll see how this works out for him. We know he knows the system, so that should work fine. And he lost some key guys, including Jaquan Lewis, but they bring in Sean Mobley. They're expecting big things out of him as a freshman. They've got some other key players on this team, including Justin Tillman and Jenkins and Van. And yeah, I think this team is going to be better than last year's team, because I think last year's team kind of underachieved a little bit. I know they won 26 games and all that, and made the tournament, but I don't know. I didn't really think that I think there could have been more there, and I think they have a little bit more potential this year. Dayton, though, Jamal, I don't like. I think they lost way too much, including Archie Miller. I don't think they're a tournament team this year.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Miller pretty much defined that program and who they are, the way they play, tough, gritty, defensive type of team. He's a big personality. I think that's going to be tough to replace. As far as VCU goes, it's a tough act to follow. Will Wade, and then before that, Shaka Smart. Remember, VCU has been in 7 straight NCAAs. I don't know if people realize that, coming from the A-10, and not even before. Where were they before? What conference were they in before the A-10? CAA.
They were.
CAA. Right. So I mean, that's a tremendous record right there for VCU.
Okay.
It'll be tough for Mike Rhodes to get them over the hump this year. The A-10 might be just a 2-3 team, 2-3 teams deep as far as the NCAA tournament is concerned. But they'll be in the mix, so we'll see.
Yeah, again, I don't see Dayton as a tournament team, Scott, but VCU, I think they've got a little bit more than last year because of the fact that some of their key guys are back, so that'll make them better. And then again, this freshman Mobley, that's going to be the ticket. If this kid can really help them out, then that's where I think that may be able to push him over the top and make him a dangerous tournament team.
Well, before I touch on those two teams, we cannot completely overlook the fact that St. Bonaventure has 2 of the top 4 players.
Yeah, well, because we didn't start talking about St. Bonaventure yet.
I know, but you touched on VCU and Dayton before them, and I think St. Bonaventure is better than both those teams significantly.
Yeah, they might be.
Yeah, give the body some love.
Well, I got a good friend, Drew, who is a St. Bonnie alum. Actually has 2 St. Bonnie tattoos. So. If anybody in the world does it,
you would like to kiss ass to your friend. That's what you're doing. Now I get it.
No, I'm not. I'm not kissing ass to my friend. In fact, he's gonna kiss my ass when I tell him when he hears that or when he listens to the show. And because Jalen Adams, in my opinion, is a top 20 player in this country. Last year he was a 21 point per game, 7 assist guy. He could get 4, 5, 6 rebounds a game. He could shoot the 3. He could score, he could slash and score, he gets to the line, he shoots well from the free throw line. And then Matt Mobley, just as good with almost the same kind of split except for the more rebounds than assists. These 2 guys are outstanding. And I think St. Bonnie is a lock for the tournament again, finally get them back in there. As for Dayton, before I get to VCU, Dayton, don't forget that Dayton's got Antetokounmpo, okay? Kostas Antetokounmpo. He's, the big 6'10" small forward, as the Antetokounmpos tend to be. Yes, they did lose an awful lot. I'm not sure that they're going to be a tournament team. Terrell Davis, he's the big senior. He's the leader of that team. Of course, they got the Gruden kid, who's also a senior and getting better every year. But it's going to be interesting to see if they can make it or not. I do, again, like VCU because I mentioned 2 of the top 4 players. VCU probably has the best overall player in the conference, and that's Justin Tillman, who has just gotten better and better each year. He's the only team that's first team all conference and first team all defense in the conference. He's really, really good. And then a couple of good freshmen coming in. I'm looking forward to see what VCU can do. And like you mentioned, just so much stuff to follow from Mike Rhodes. Not only that, they now have to play Shaka Smart in Texas this year. That's kind of cool for the schedule, don't you think?
No question.
All right. Now that we're done talking about the 2 perennial powers in this conference, let's talk about St. Bonaventure. St. Bonaventure definitely is the second best team in this conference, and I remember that game against VCU last year. That was some wild game. I don't know. Did you watch that game last year? Do you remember that game? That game had I remember St. Bonaventure got screwed by the officiating in that game. You remember that, Jamal?
I do.
Yeah, that was
a kind of triple-double overtime.
Yeah.
There was a late shot that they counted or something like that.
Yeah, it was just awful. They got totally screwed. No, wait, you know what it was? It was the wasn't it when the players went on the court?
Right. You're right.
Yeah, that's what it was. The players, not the players, the fans went on the court.
Right.
And they called a technical on St. Bonaventure. And VCU hits the free throws. They go to overtime, and then VCU beat them. So yeah, that was terrible, especially for a team that was on the bubble like St. Bonaventure was. But yeah, they're everybody's back except one key guy. So yeah, you're right. They're definitely the second top team in this conference. And then a couple of the teams. You know what? There are a lot of good sleeper teams in this conference. One of the sleeper teams I like is St. Louis. I think Travis Ford has done a really good job bringing in a whole bunch of new players into the program. And they had a really bad year last year, but I like all the new guys this year. And from what for some of the research I've been doing on some of these guys, I think they've got something going on in St. Louis, Jamal.
Well, I like the new coach. I like what they're doing in St. Louis. They have a history there of being able to have a decent program. Going even recently with Majerus, and after that things kind of came tumbling down a little bit.
Yeah.
But my sleeper is Davidson. I love
Sure.
the Davidson program. Love Bob McKillop as a coach. Got to be one of the top coaches in the country, no question about it. They lost their best player, Jack Gibbs, to graduation, but they returned all their other starters. They returned 4 starters, including Peyton Aldridge, who's looked at as a first team All League guy. And I think when you have 4 returning starters and you got a coach like Bob McKillop, I think they're at least a top 4 team in the league.
Yeah, and they bring in Kellen Grady, the freshman, and also Gudmundsson is a sophomore, so he's older. Yeah, Davidson's a good sleeper team, Scott. Also, I think George Mason could be interesting. Dave Paulson's a good coach. I'd keep an eye on them. I think LaSalle could be better this year. I think Richmond could be good, and I also think St. Joe's with Phil Martelli could be good. But the only thing I'm concerned about, they got a couple of guys injured right now, Newkirk and Brown, and they can't do anything if those guys are going to be banged up.
No, you're absolutely right. But I'll tell you one thing: Bob McKillop and Phil Martelli are the 2 best coaches in this league, and 2 of the really classy, long-term guys. Good news for them is that Newkirk is good to go.
Okay.
He with the ACL injury, he will be ready to go. I believe he actually started practicing either yesterday or 2 days ago, something like that. So he's good to go. Brown, that one's still a little bit more unclear to see when his timetable is. But you mentioned St. Louis, and I really like St. Louis. St. Louis has one of the biggest recruits in the country, believe it or not, in Goodwin, the shooting guard. So that's something you don't hear every day. Especially you don't hear top recruits like this in the country. You don't hear top recruits generally going in the country to A-10 schools, but you have the highest recruit in the country, in my opinion, is Jordan Goodwin, who's an outstanding shooter, a guy who's going to make an immediate impact, and a guy who's going to be a very trusted guard for a lot of people. And another really good recruit coming in is Kellen Grady of Davidson. He's another guy who's going to be outstanding. He's a point guard, some guy who can really dish the ball in to Peyton Aldridge. So I think that those 2 teams are both being severely underrated when you look at the polls going into the season. I think that, Davidson 6, St. Louis 7 going into the polls. And that just says a lot about this league, though. This has been a league that, since the AAC has really come into play, except for UConn winning that championship, the A-10 has been a better league that gets significantly less media airtime. It gets significantly less, talked about in big-time major college basketball news. And this is a league that I've been watching very closely for several years. They have, if you look at their preseason first team all-conference, that team competes as good as any against any preseason all-conference teams in the country.
Well, the other team that I mentioned, LaSalle, they've got that freshman Moultrie, who everybody's excited about there, and B.J. Johnson is one of the top players in the conference. So I know they haven't been the same team that they were when they made that run a few years ago, but maybe they could, be an interesting team this year. And then the other teams that we really didn't have much to talk about, but again, there's a lot of teams we did talk about. There's still a lot of rebuilding going on at Duquesne, but Keith Dombrut's there. I think that's a coup, to tell you the truth, because he did a remarkable job at Akron, and for him to go to Duquesne, and I guess why is he there because there's what does he have some sort of did his father coach there or something like that? Is that why?
I'm not sure.
I think that's his father's alma mater, because it's like, why would he go from Akron, which they had all this dominant winning in the MAC, to Duquesne? But I think his father is a Dookie, and so that's the reason he went there. So I think that could turn that program around. I think. What do you think about Neubauer, Scott? Is he the right guy at Fordham?
Fordham is one of the toughest places. It's one of those places that's so tough because you have they consider themselves to be probably one of the more prominent teams in the biggest city in the country.
Yeah.
I actually, so my first year working all these college basketball games, my company, we did like I think 13 or 14, or no, I think we did 10 of the 14, 10 of the 14 home games for Fordham that year, and that was in the I forgot. That's when they had the freshman that transferred to Villanova. I'm blanking on his name. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name.
Pascal.
But the guy, yeah, there you go, Eric. They had Pascal, who was the biggest incoming freshman that pretty much any A-10 team had in a really long time. And so it's really tough to succeed there. It's a great school with great people, and it's unfortunate that they have to keep on going new coach to new coach. And Dan Brock's dad was a basketball player at
Duquesne.
Duquesne. Yeah.
I mean, Neubauer is a winning coach. He's a
Right.
really good defensive coach. He just hasn't won there, but like you said, it's not easy to win there. But I'd give him time, Jamal.
Right.
Because he knows how to coach.
Right. I mean, he actually has won there. If you look at, compared to everybody else.
That's true. Yeah.
I think they have 15 combined conference victories in the last 2 years, and that's more than they had in a decade. So he's, I think we give him some more time. He's doing better than anybody else has there in recent history. Whether he can truly succeed, it depends what you think success is there. Can I envision Fordham being a tournament team anytime soon? No. But if he even gets them close, that's a success.
GW's got Wannabe, and that's about it. Maurice Joseph took over a tough situation last year, but they liked what he did, and they gave him a contract extension. So, what? It was pretty bad, wasn't it?
No, Watanabe is his name.
Okay.
Not Wannabe. He's not Wannabe. The team might be Wannabe, but they anyway. Going to Fordham real quick, they got Joseph Chardonnay, the junior Canadian, who's outstanding. They also have Nemanja Zarkovic, who's a really deadly shooter, another Canadian guy, and of course Antoine Fortley, who is a transfer coming in from I believe St. Peter's. Yeah, St. Peter's. So he's
St. Peter's transfer. That'll get him going.
Hey, so wait a minute. He was a star at St. Peter's.
Yeah,
okay?
that'll still get him going.
So, hey,
what did he average? 5 points a game?
No, come on. When you're a star at a school like that, you average double figures.
Yeah, that school's on a street. I went there. You ever been to St. Peter's? Yeah, it's like on a street corner. I'm serious.
I've been to that.
It was awful.
Game. I watched St. Peter's get buzzer beaten by Hartford 2 years ago.
At their gym? Was it at their gym?
At their high school gymnasium.
Yeah, at their high school. Exactly. That's what I was going to say. It's a high school gym. That's what it is. It's ridiculous.
It's absolutely a high school gym. I'm very proud of my college basketball travels. I have seen a game in 67 on-campus gyms or home gyms, 67 home gyms and countless neutral sites as well. And no disrespect to any St. Peter's fans listening, but the St. Peter's gym has far and away been the most disappointing I've ever been to.
It is. It's not even close.
But I left that game smiling, not because they lost, but because it was a great game, and it was a bus beater. 3 from a Hartford kid. I can't remember the kid's name. But I was only up there. I only went to that game because I was looking for something to do the night before the Jimmy V Classic, the 2K Classic, which was the night before at the Garden. And I was like, hey, I may as well watch college basketball. This is all I do with my life.
Have you been to the Palestra?
Oh, come on! I've been to the Palestra probably 15 times. I've seen Temple. I've seen Penn play all 4 other Big 5 teams there. Come on,
because I've never been. That's one of the things I want to do this year.
Oh, you got to get there. I'll meet you there. It's basically halfway between the two of us. I'll meet you there. It's always fun there, and especially when I get a Big 5 team in there.
Or maybe George Washington will be there. You can go see the St. Peter's transfer and Wannabe.
No. The St. Peter's transfer's on Fordham.
Oh, Fordham. Okay, that's better then.
So he went from Jersey City to the Bronx.
That's okay. That's all right. Fordham can use St. Peter's transfers.
That's pretty close. Jersey City, Bronx.
It's
Yeah. Well, I mean, traffic-wise in New York, that still takes, about an hour and 15 minutes?
Oh, easily.
And UMass has a new coach, Matt McCall. So Matt
Good
McCall.
luck to him.
Yeah, where was he? Chattanooga. Did a good job at Chattanooga. So he's going to have to build the program up there, but it'll be a rebuilding year for UMass. So as far as this conference, Rhode Island is definitely the team to beat, and they definitely have a shot at Sweet 16 this year, and maybe even more. St. Bonaventure looks like the clear number 2. Should be a tournament team. After that, who knows? But I think we're in agreement that St. Louis could be a nice sleeper pick. But other than that, I don't know. Again, a lot of good sleepers. Maybe VCU is the only other team that I could say that I could Jamal go, yeah, okay. Third tournament team, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think Davidson could sneak up in there and become a factor.
Okay.
But if I had to put money on it, I'd say this is a 3-team NCAA league. Right now, those 3, seem to be Rhode Island, St. Bonnie's, and VCU. But this A-10 has been known to surprise, so you just never know. Anyone, Richmond could surprise, LaSalle could surprise, St. Louis. There's a bunch of teams I think could vie for like the 3rd or 4th spot.
Who's your top sleeper then, Scott?
Well, my top sleeper is still St. Joe, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's totally fair to call them a sleeper because they've been, okay, well, fine. If it's totally fair to call them a sleeper, it's St. Joe. So again, we will see Charlie Brown soon. I don't think we'll see him in the first month. I think we'll see him definitely before conference play, which will help him out big time. We will see Newkirk almost certainly. Maybe not this first weekend, but we'll see him in the month of November. So that'll really help them out. And I like them a lot. I really like this league. And again, like I said before, don't be surprised if once again this league produces 4 or 5 tournament teams and draws the AAC, which they've done, I think, all but 1 year in the last 6 seasons.
Yeah, well,
they
look.
Don't have the championship.
Look, St. Joe's had, they had 11 wins last year. So going to the tournament does make them a sleeper. So even though we all agree that they have what it takes to be a tournament team, but I don't think a lot of people are expecting them to make the tournament. But yeah, look, if St. Louis makes it, if St. Joe's makes it, if Davidson makes it, plus VCU, St. Bonaventure, and Rhode Island, I don't think we'd all be shocked.
If and if healthy, again, if healthy, you're looking at the second best guard combo. The best guard combo on the conference is obviously St. Bonnie with Jalen Adams and Matt Mobley, but St. Joe with Newkirk and Lamar Kimball. That's a really, really good guard combo, and they're really 2 really outstanding players. And Newkirk is from all everything I've gathered is an even better leader. So hopefully he stays healthy, and looking forward to seeing him play.
All right, sounds like a plan. So there you go, our first edition, our preview edition of College Hoops for 2018. Next up is going to be Big East ACC basketball. So we have no idea when we're going to do that. It could be tomorrow, it could be in 3 months from now, but it'll be sometime probably in the next week. So, but we'll let you know. Best thing to do is follow us on Twitter at PrimeSM, because that's when we send out the on-demand shows. So you don't have to worry about listening on live. Just follow us on Twitter. We'll let you know when to check out the shows on demand, and then you can listen to them at your leisure. So, Scott, appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for the season to start. Friday, Maryland up in Long Island, Jamal. Maryland's up in Long Island against Stony Brook. Meet me there, buddy. Friday night.
Could be a trap game.
Hey, it's at Stony Brook?
No, it's at the new Nassau Coliseum, Jamal. Oh,
that's a tournament game. Okay.
Hey, man.
Right.
That's about an hour for me.
All right. So, Jamal, appreciate your time, too.
About 5 hours for me, Jamal.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the next one, Big East ACC.
We'll do it real soon. So thanks a lot for tuning in to Prime Sports College Hoops on the Prime Sports Radio Network. And we'll see you next time for more college hoops talk. For Scott Solatoro, for Jamal Murphy, and Greg DePalma. And we'll see you next time.